Hello student, welcome back to our MSc First Physics semester 2nd course Atoms and Molecules, and this is our 10th lecture. And in this course we are studying, or we studied the one module of this course, that is a resonance spectroscopy. And now in this lecture we have to start the new module of this course, that is the third module. We have covered first of all for fourth module, and now here we have to start the next module, that is a module third, and which is the spectroscopic techniques, and this is for also one credit. And this is the module in which we have to study the different spectroscopic techniques. So first of all, before going to start our third module, just we summarize the different topics in this module. So first is the, that is first spectroscopy. In this module is the microwave spectroscopy, and under the microwave spectroscopy again there are different topics, and they are microwave spectrometer, information derived from the rotational spectra, and analysis of microwave absorption by H2O. H2O means water. So in a micro spectroscopy we have to study about the microwave spectrometer, that means the instrumentation of the microwave spectroscopy, and also we have to study the information derived from the rotational spectra. The microwave spectroscopy is also known as the rotational spectroscopy because in that we have studied only the rotation of particular molecules. So and from that we get some information, and so here we will also study about the information derived from the rotational spectra, that means which information we get from the microwave spectroscopy. All those things we will study in this module. So and next one is the analysis of microwave absorption by H2O, that means how the microwave absorption takes place by the water molecule. So all those topics which comes under the microwave spectroscopy. This is the first spectroscopic technique. Now the second, that is a B, infrared spectroscopy. In short we call it as a IR spectroscopy. And again under the infrared spectroscopy there are different topics such as IR spectrophotometer and instrumentation, sample handling techniques, FTR spectroscopy, and analysis of SCL spectrum and its applications. So these all are the different points. First of all, in infrared spectroscopy we have to study the IR spectrometer, or the simply instrumentation of the IR spectroscopy. We know that in IR region of the electromagnetic spectrum, again we have three different regions, that is a near infrared region, far infrared region, and the mid infrared region. So these all are the three different regions in the infrared spectroscopy, and we have to focus on that particular region in the infrared spectroscopy. So in this spectroscopy we will study about the IR spectrometer and instrumentation. Also the different techniques are used for the preparation of the sample in this technique. So also we will discuss about the sample handling techniques. Next one is the FTIR spectroscopy. FTIR spectroscopy is nothing but the Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy, and which again comes under the infrared spectroscopy. Here is the Fourier transformation is used for the some extension, and then we get the different result. So which all those things comes under the FTIR spectroscopy. And again analysis of SCL spectrum, that means with the help of this spectroscopy we can analyze the SCL spectrum. So we will study about the SCL spectrum in detail in our upcoming videos, or in infrared spectroscopy, and again its application. So the number of applications are there, so we will discuss about the applications of that particular spectroscopy. Now the third spectroscopy is the Raman spectroscopy. Theory of Raman scattering, rotational Raman spectra, mutual exclusion, Raman spectrometer, Raman sample handling techniques, Fourier transform Raman spectrometer, structure determination using IR and Raman spectroscopy of diamond particularly and its application. So all those points comes under the Raman spectroscopy. Raman spectroscopy is depend on the scattering phenomena, and here we have to study about the theory of the Raman scattering. There are different lines, relay lines, Stokes lines, anti-Stokes lines. All those things comes under in the theory of the Raman scattering. And after that there is a rotational Raman spectra. There are again two types of the theoretical part, that is according to quantum mechanics and according to classical. So according to that we can study, or we will study the rotational Raman spectra. Again there is different concept, that is a mutual exclusion. After that there is a Raman spectrometer, that means how we get the Raman spectra with the help of Raman spectrometer. All those things we will study in the Raman spectroscopy. Also here there are different techniques to prepare the sample. So the sample handling techniques, Fourier transform Raman spectrometer, as like we already mentioned in a IR spectroscopy, there is FTIR spectroscopy, that is a Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy. Similarly here in Raman spectroscopy there is also Fourier transform Raman spectrometer. So what is the difference between actually them, we will discuss in our upcoming lectures. Structure determination using IR and Raman spectroscopy, that means we have to study about the structure of the diamond, but with the help of IR spectroscopy as well as the Raman spectroscopy. So all those things we will discuss in that particular case of the diamond and applications of the Raman spectroscopy. So this is the contents of our third module, that is the module third, which is the spectroscopic techniques. So we will cover one by one spectroscopy. First we start with the first spectroscopy, that is a microwave spectroscopy. So let's start with the microwave spectroscopy. First we see the introductory part of the microwave spectroscopy. So it is a concern with the transition between rotational energy levels in the molecules. The molecules gives a rotational spectrum only if it has a permanent dipole moment. We know that in physics the dipole moment concept is very important in the molecule, and according to that we can decide the different properties of that particular molecule. So the transition between two rotational energy levels in the molecule, the molecule gives rotational spectrum, that means all those things happen when there is a transition between the rotational energy level of the molecule. But when it has a permanent dipole moment, then and then we get the rotational spectrum, that is the microwave for the condition for the microwave spectroscopy, that the molecule or the sample we can use, it must have a permanent dipole moment, then and then it shows the rotational Raman spectra. So this is the condition for the microwave spectroscopy, or to get the rotational spectrum of that particular sample or of that particular molecule. Homonuclear diatomic molecules such as H2, O2, N2, Cl2 have zero dipole moment, that is they are non-polar, have zero change of dipole during the rotation, hence no interaction with the radiation, hence homonuclear diatomic molecules are microwave inactive. Again there are two types, that is microwave active molecules and microwave inactive molecules. That means the molecule which shows the microwave spectrum or rotational spectrum, when we place that molecule or sample in a microwave spectrometer, then we get the rotational spectrum, then these molecules are the microwave active. But if we don't get any spectrum of the molecule when we place that molecule in a microwave spectrometer, then these molecules are microwave inactive. So these are the two types, that is a microwave active and microwave inactive. First, the homonuclear diatomic molecules. Homonuclear means, homo means single or same, that means here the only one element is present, that means the similar, that is here suppose we take the example of H2, that is there are two hydrogen, that is a H2, but hydrogen is the same, not like HCl. In HCl hydrogen and chlorine, these are the two different elements, but here H2, that means a homonuclear diatomic molecules. Molecules are same, but they are diatomic, that means they are in a double in number, that is a H2, O2, N2, Cl2. So homonuclear diatomic molecules, that is hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen and chlorine, have zero dipole moment. That means they don't have any dipole moment, because these all are the non-polar molecules. They are non-polar. Only the polar molecules have the zero dipole moment. How we can decide the molecule have dipole moment or not? If we place particular molecule in a presence of external magnetic field, there is a polarization phenomena, that is there is a separation of positive and negative charges in that molecule. If this happen, then this molecule is a polar molecule. If this is not happen, then the molecule is a non-polar molecule, like a H2O2, N2, Cl2. So this is the polar and non-polar molecule, that is the center of the positive charge and the center of the negative charge, there is a separation between these two charges, then this molecule is a polar molecule. If the center of positive charge and center of negative charge coincident with each other in a particular molecule, then this molecule is a non-polar molecule. The example like H2O2, N2, Cl2. Therefore, the non-polar molecule have the zero dipole moment. So this is the non-polar molecule and have zero change of dipole during the rotation. When we rotate these molecules, or if we expose all those molecules in a microspectroscopy, then we don't have any interaction. That means there is no interaction with the radiation. Hence homonuclear diatomic molecules are microwave inactive. So this is the micro inactive molecules. But what about the microwave active molecules? If heteronuclear diatomic molecules such as HCl, HF, CO have permanent dipole moment, that is they are polar compound, change of dipole occurs during the rotation, hence interaction with radiation takes place. Therefore heteronuclear diatomic molecules are microwave active molecules. That means hetero means different or not single molecule, more than one or two. So here heteronuclear diatomic molecule are the diatomic, that means there are only in two number. Here we consider the diatomic molecules, and but heteronuclear, previous case we consider the homonuclear, but in this case we consider the heteronuclear, such as HCl, that means hydrogen chloride, HF hydrogen fluoride and CO, that is a carbon monoxide. Those all are the heteronuclear diatomic molecules. Hetero means there are two different molecules, that is H and Cl. Here H and F, here C and O. So in case of hydrochloric acid, that is a HCl, here we have hydrogen and chlorine. They have permanent dipole moment. Permanent dipole moment, that is they are polar compound. Polar means if we separate this molecule, then we get the H plus and Cl minus. The Cl has a high electronegativity as compared to the hydrogen, that is chlorine is a more electronegative than the hydrogen. So these all are the polar compounds, and the polar compound have permanent dipole moment. Change of dipole moment occurs during rotation, and due to the presence of the permanent dipole moment, there is an interaction with the radiation. That means the rotation occurs in that molecule, that is hence the interaction with the radiation takes place, and therefore the heteronuclear diatomic molecules are the microwave active. So these all are the two different cases. Rotational spectroscopy is only really practical in the gas phase where the rotational motion is quantized. We know that the energy levels are quantized. That means they takes particular value, but in rotational energy level they are equidistant lines. And if we consider the particular in a gaseous phase, that means rotational spectroscopy is only really practical in the gas phase, because in a gas phase the intermolecular distance is very large, right? And due to that the gas phase where the rotational motion is quantized and they can easily rotate, so the rotational motion is gets easily quantized. But in case of solid and liquid, we have to quench that motion. So in a solid or liquids, the rotational motion is usually quenched due to collision between their molecules. That means we have to quench that rotational motion, that means due to collision between their molecules in case of solid and liquids. So generally the gaseous samples are used for this spectroscopy because they are preferable, but in case of solid and liquids, motion is usually quenched. Now, what is the principle of microwave spectroscopy? The microwave spectroscopy explores that part of the electromagnetic spectrum which is extending from 100 micrometer, that is 3 into 10 to the power 13 hertz, to 1 centimeter, that is 3 into 10 to the power 10 hertz. So the microwave spectroscopy explores, that is extend over a electromagnetic spectrum in the range that is 100 micrometer to 1 centimeter. This is the wavelength range of the microspectroscopy in the electromagnetic spectrum, or in terms of frequency from 3 into 10 to the power 13 hertz to 3 into 10 to the power 10 hertz. So this is the range of microspectroscopy in the electromagnetic spectrum. This region of electromagnetic spectrum is designed as the microwave region. This lies between the far infrared and conventional radio frequency region. That means where the position of the microwave region in the electromagnetic spectrum. It lies in between the far infrared and the radio frequency regions. And as already we mentioned, the frequency range, that means this frequency range or this wavelength range in between the electromagnetic, in between this electromagnetic spectrum, the microwave region lies. Therefore, microwave spectroscopy deals with the pure rotational motion of the molecules and is also known as a rotational spectroscopy. That means this spectroscopy deals only with the rotational, that is a pure rotational motion of the molecule. They not consider the vibrational motion or other motions, translational or vibrational motion. They just consider only the pure rotational motions of the molecule. Therefore, this spectroscopy is also known as the rotational spectroscopy. The condition for observing resonance in that region is that a molecule must possess a permanent dipole moment. As already we mentioned, for the microwave spectroscopy, the condition is that the molecule must have the permanent dipole moment. When a molecule having dipole moment rotates, it generates an electric field which can interact with the electric component of the microwave radiation. We know that the microwave radiation is nothing but the one of the type of the electromagnetic radiation. And again we know that in electromagnetic radiation there is an electric and magnetic field component. They are perpendicular to each other, right? So in the microwave radiation we have the electric field, right? And this electric field component interact with the electric field. That means the electric field which generated by the when molecule having dipole moment, it rotates. That is, the condition for the microwave spectroscopy is that the molecule must have the permanent dipole moment, and due to that dipole moment property, it rotates, that dipole moment rotates and it generates the electric field, and that generated electric field interact with the electric component of the microwave radiation. That means in the microwave radiation, electric field and magnetic field vector. So the generated electric field due to dipole moment rotation interact with the electric field component of the microwave radiation. During the interaction, the energy can be absorbed or emitted, and thus the rotation of the molecule gives rise to spectrum. So when there is interaction between these two electric fields, there is a energy can be absorbed or emitted according to the absorption or emission spectrum. So in this way we get the rotation of the molecule, and this is represented in terms of the spectrum. If molecules are not having dipole moment, interaction are not possible, and these molecules are said to be microwave inactive. As already mentioned, if there is no permanent dipole moment, that means the non-polar molecules like H2N2O2, those do not have any dipole moment, so they are microwave inactive molecules. Examples of such molecules are hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, chlorine. So these all are the homonuclear diatomic molecules which do not having any dipole moment, and therefore they are the microwave inactive. On the other hand, the molecules like HCl, CH3Cl, etc. are having dipole moments, and their interaction will give rise to a spectrum. Such molecules are said to be microwave active. That means the molecules which have permanent dipole moment like HCl, CH3Cl, and these are the homonuclear diatomic molecules. Here is only HCl, and they have the permanent dipole moment, that is they are non-polar, and because therefore that property they interact with the microwave radiation and gives rise to the rotational spectrum. So these molecules are called as a microwave active molecules. Generally, the microwave spectra obtained in most of the molecules are absorption spectra. Theoretical consideration reveals that probability of microwave spectra is only about 1% of the optical absorption. That means there are two types of the rotational spectra, that is absorption spectra or transmission spectra, but generally we can generally obtain the absorption spectra, because theoretical consideration reveals that the probability of microwave spectra is only about 1% of the optical absorption. So this is the important. Now microwave spectrometer, that means how we are able to obtain the microwave spectrum or rotational spectrum with the help of microwave spectrometer. And again, the microwave spectrometer consists of the different parts. So let's start with the all those parts, that is based on the functions of the spectrometer, the following parts are needed. That is, first one is the source, second one is the measurement of frequency, third one is the guidance of the radiation to the absorbing substance, fourth one is the sample cell, and last one is the, that is the fifth one, which is the detector. So all those are the different parts of the microwave spectrometer, and with the help of all those parts we get the rotational spectrum of particular sample or molecules. The schematic representation of microwave spectrometer is shown in the figure. That means this figure, this is the schematic diagram of the microwave spectrometer. The first part is the source, that is a source. Most of the spectrometers have in the past used klystrons, which emits monochromatic microwave radiation of very high stability. That means the source generally which are used in the microspectrometers are klystrons, as already mentioned in ESR and NMR spectroscopy. There is also we used the klystron source, and this source emit monochromatic microwave radiation. That means the radiation which have the frequency range, that is for the microwave radiation, and which of very high stability, they have very high stability. So the source is a stable, that is a klystron source. This is the schematic representation of microwave spectrometer. Here we have the cavity, that means this cavity, or we call it as a waveguide, and this is known as the sample cell, in which we can place sample. Again, here is a small wall, and this wall goes to the vacuum pump. That means this tube is evacuated, that is the vacuum is filled in this tube. Here is a mica window, that is the first mica window, and here is the second mica window, and the line joining these two windows is the Stark electrode. Now here is the detector, that is a generally used, that is a crystal detector. After that, this detector detects the signal when the microwave radiation goes through the sample, and this detector sends that signals and again given to the preamplifier, and this preamplifier amplify that signals and again given to the lock-in amplifier, and in this way we get the particular signal on a display device, and we get the spectra on the display device. So here is the klystron power supply. Here is a klystron, and this is the cross sectional view of the Stark cell. Here is the Stark cell, that means the middle line is the Stark cell, and this is the zoom view of the or cross sectional view of the Stark cell. First of all, here we have a klystron source, that is a microwave source which emit the monochromatic microwave radiations, and this klystron source needs a power supply, that means this is the klystron power supply. After emission of the microwave radiation from this source, the radiation enters into this tube, that is a waveguide, through this part or this side, and after that the radiation pass through the mica window first, and which is again given to this sample cell, and after that there is interaction between the microwave radiation and the particular sample which we have been placed in the cavity, and all those happens in presence of the vacuum, that means all those interaction happens in presence of vacuum, and after that there are some signals are generated, and these signals are detected by the crystal detector. So here is the detector, and this signal after detecting there is some amplification process to get the proper spectrum. So all those are the amplified or to get the proper signal or best signal. So all these assembly helps to get the proper signal, and after that this signal is given to the oscilloscope or recorder. Therefore recorder record that signal, and that gives us a rotational spectrum. So in this way the schematic representation of the microspectrometer, or in this way this is work, or this will work. The frequency of the klystron can be varied mechanically over a wide range or electrically over a small range. That means the first part is the source, and this is the klystron source, and which is the monochromatic micro emitter source, and this the frequency of the emitted radiation of the klystron, that is a microwave frequency, can be varied mechanically over a wide range. That means we can vary this frequency mechanically over a wide range, and also we can vary this frequency electrically but over a small range. In place of klystron, backward wave oscillators which can be tuned electronically over a very wide range of frequencies can also be used. That means instead of klystron we can use the backward wave oscillators. This source is one of the microwave radiation source, and this also gives the microwave radiation over a very wide range of frequency. So this also can be used. However, to avoid the instability, they have to be phase locked to a stable low frequency sweep oscillator. In recent times, gun diodes are also extensively, as they need only 20 volt input power compared to the 300 to 4000 volt required for the klystron and backward wave oscillators. That means instead of klystron and backward wave oscillators, we can use the gun diodes. That means the gun diode is one of the source of the microwave radiation, but it is extensively just need about 20 volt as compared to the backward wave oscillator and klystron. The backward wave oscillator and klystron required about 300 to 4000 volt input power. Then and then they gives us the microwave radiation, but in case of gun diode we just require only 20 volt input power. So this is the beneficial over a klystron and backward wave oscillator. So recently the gun diodes are used as a microwave radiation source. They can be tuned mechanically over a whole range without voltage adjustment, as in the case of klystron. That means if we adjust the voltage range, then we get the very whole or very wide range of the frequency without voltage adjustment, as in the klystron. That means if we use the gun diodes, and these gun diodes tuned mechanically over a wide range of frequency without any adjustment of the voltage. That means there is no change, there is no need to vary the voltage to get the wide range of frequency. That means in klystron we also get the same criteria. So this is the beneficial for the using gun diodes, array, backward wave oscillators and klystron. As these sources are fairly monochromatic, dispersion of radiation by means of prism or grating monochromator is not needed. That means these sources are already monochromatic source, so there is no need to use the prism or grating which acts as a monochromator. Now the second component or second part of the microwave spectrometer is nothing but the frequency measuring device. That means we have to measure the frequency of that radiation. Cavity wave meters actually accuracy between plus minus 1 to plus minus 5 megahertz are used to get the rough estimate of the frequency of the microwave radiation. That means here is a measurement of the frequency of the microwave radiation, and this is measured with the help of cavity wave meters, and the accuracy of these cavity wave meters is lies in between plus minus 1 to plus minus 5 megahertz. So in this way we can measure the frequency of microwave radiation with the help of cavity wave meters. Accurate frequency measurements can be done directly by frequency counters or by use of the bit techniques. That means instead of that, that is instead of cavity meters, we can directly measure the frequency with the help of counters or the bit techniques. So this is the second part. Now the third part of the microwave spectrometer is the guidance of radiation to the cell. The microwave radiation from the source can be transmitted to the sample cell through the hollow metallic tube, usually copper, of rectangular cross section called waveguides. That means as shown in the figure, this part. So this is the rectangular part, and this part is made up from copper. That means usually copper, and this is the hollow metallic tube, and this is known as the waveguides. That means if we consider this klystron emits the radiations, that is a microwave radiation, and this radiation is given to this tube. So the radiation given to this tube is goes through this sample, and there is an interaction between the microwave radiation and this sample, and after that there is a generation of a particular signal, and that signal is detected by this detector. So the waveguide plays very important role in the microwave spectrometer. So here the microwave radiation from the source can be transmitted to the sample cell through the hollow metallic tube. That means all those happens through the hollow metallic tube, and this tube is known as the waveguides. Waveguides of different dimensions are needed depending on the type of the spectrometer used. That is X band, which having frequency range that is 8 to 12.4 gigahertz, and K band, which having frequency range that is 12.4 to 18 gigahertz, and etc. That means there are different types of waveguides. According to need, we can use the particular waveguide. So here the first waveguide is the X band, which having frequency range lies in this range, and second is the K band, which having frequency that is lies in this range. It is necessary to couple out small fraction of power from the main transmission line for frequency measurement, monitoring power, etc. That means we have to couple out the small fraction of power. That means we have to get the small fraction of power from the main transmission line of the frequency measurement and monitoring power. All those things are important. A simple and efficient arrangement of this purpose is the Bethe-Hall directional coupler. That means in order to achieve or in order to collect or couple the small fraction of power from main transmission line of frequency measurement and monitoring power, like that we have to need the different directional coupler, which is the Bethe-Hall coupler. So here we can use Bethe-Hall directional coupler for that purpose. Another useful device is the Magic T, which is used as a power divider, as a bridge for the balancing microwave power, etc. That means we can use another device like a Bethe hole coupler, that is a magic T, and which is used as a power diver power divider. That means it is used for the purpose of power divider and as a bridge for balancing microwave power. That means if we want to balancing the microwave, or if we want to balance the microwave power, then we can use the magic T device. In addition to these, one requires waveguide bends and connectors, tapers, impedance matching devices, attenuators, etc. That means in addition to those, that means in addition to magic T or Bethe hole directional couple, we can use the another devices like waveguide bends, connectors, tapers, impedance matching devices, attenuators to get the or to couple the small fraction of the power, that is a microwave power, or to balance the microwave power. So this is all about the guidance of radiation to the cell. Now the next and very important part of the microwave spectrometer, that is a sample cell. Different types of cells have been developed depending on the nature of the experiments. Each has its own advantages and disadvantages. That means there are variety of sample cells which have been developed depending on the nature of the experiment. That means depending on the requirement of the particular experiments. One of the commonly used cell is the Stark cell, employing Stark modulation techniques. That means the most commonly sample cell used is nothing but the Stark cell, and which is employing the Stark modulation techniques. The sample cell consists of a long 3 to 4 meter rectangular waveguide. The ends of each are sealed off by means of a thin mica windows. It has a provision to evacuate and admit the sample to be studied. That means the sample cell consists of a small or long tube which have length, that is 3 to 4 meter, and which is in a rectangular shape, that is a rectangular waveguide, and at the end of the waveguides, that is at the both end of the waveguide, there is a thin mica windows, that is a mica window first and mica window second. That means here mica window first and mica window second, and this total arrangement is the sample cell. Here we get the Stark electrode, or here we have Stark electrode, here mica window 1, here mica window 2, and this is the total part of the sample cell, and in which we can place the sample. So it has a provision to evacuate. That means there is a small wall which is given to the vacuum pump, so that we can maintain the vacuum in that tube or in that waveguide and admit sample to be studied. That means we can study the interaction of microwave with that sample, and we get the rotational spectrum of that particular sample. The radiation is allowed to enter the cell through mica window 1 and pass through the window 2 is detected. That means the radiation after emission from the klystron. That means here is the source of microwave radiation, that is a klystron. Now after emission of the microwave radiation from this source, it passes through this sample cell. That means first it enters through the mica window 1, and after that it leaving through the mica window 2, and after that there is a detection techniques. That is now after that there is the radiation is allowed through the cell through the mica window 1 and passes through the window is detected, as already seen in a figure. Now in a Stark cell, a flat metal strip is mounted halfway between the broad faces of the waveguide cell with a dielectric, that is a Teflon, insulating the plate from the metallic waveguide. That means there is a insulated material which is used to insulate the plate from the metallic guide, and generally this material is used as a Teflon, and which is the dielectric material, and all those happens in the Stark cell. That is a flat metal strip is mounted halfway between the broad faces of the waveguide. That means there is a metal strip and which is placed at the halfway between the broad faces of the waveguide, and this is coated with the insulating material, that is a dielectric material, which is a Teflon. By injecting a 0 to 2000 volt zero based square wave potential between the metallic plate and waveguide, the resonance frequency of the molecules can be modulated via the Stark effect. That means there is a Stark effect actually, and this is modulated through this Stark effect. That means by injecting nearly 0 to 1000 volt zero based square wave potential between the metallic plate and waveguide. That means here we provide 0 to 2000 square wave potential in between the metallic plate and waveguide, so that the resonance frequency of the molecule can be modulated, and all this happens, that is by the phenomena Stark effect. The modulation is followed by a phase lock detector which will respond only molecular resonances. Hence the cell background characteristics are eliminated in the Stark modulation spectrograph. That means there are some background characteristics and which are not necessary. So the elimination of these background characteristics in the modulation spectrograph is done with the help of phase lock detector. So this is the function of the phase lock detector. Now the last and important part for the detection of the signal, that is a detector. A silicon crystal mounted in a coaxial cartridge is the most commonly used detector. That means the silicon crystal detector is the most commonly used detector in the microwave spectrometer. The incoming radiation gives rise to a DC current. In a Stark spectrographs, the transmitted radiation is modulated only when the molecular resonance, that is absorption, occurs. That means the incoming radiation gives rise to a DC current. That means the radiation gives rise to direct current. In a Stark spectrograph, the transmitted radiation is modulated only when, that means there is a transmission radiation obviously, and this transmitted radiation modulated only when the molecular resonance occurs. That means there is a absorption at that particular frequency. So this is the resonance actually, and at that time we get the particular signal. On resonance, a small square wave is imprinted on the top of the DC signal. That means due to resonance or at the resonance we get the small square wave, and which is imprinted on the top of the DC signal. This AC component is amplified and detected by the phase sensitive detector. That means there is a phase sensitive detector, and phase sensitive detector just detect the AC component. So this AC component is amplified with the help of this detector, and which is connected to the oscilloscope or chart recorder. That means all those things are connected to the display system, and then we get the spectra. So this is the, in this way we get the rotational spectra of particular sample. Improved signal to noise ratio possible only when the modulation frequency is optimum, that is in the range 30 to 100 kilohertz. That means if we have a proper signal, that is improved signal to noise ratio, then we have to modulate frequency at its optimum value, that means at its particular value, that is a 30 to 100 kilohertz range. Now all those things are about the different parts of the spectrometer, but how it actually work. So the working of the microwave spectrometer. Monochromatic radiation of various wavelengths in the microwave region emitted by klystron wall are allowed to pass through the sample space containing the gaseous sample of the substance under the investigation. That means there is a source, and this source emit the microwave radiation. These all are the monochromatic radiation of various wavelength, but this wavelength lies in the microwave region, and this is emitted by the klystron, and this allowed to pass through the sample space containing the gaseous sample. That means if we consider in the figure, here is the klystron, that is it emits the microwave radiation. After emission of this radiation, it goes through this sample, and this sample is placed in this waveguide, and there is interaction between this microwave radiation and the sample, and after that we get some particular signal, that is the information about that molecule or that sample, and this is detected by the crystal detector. So in this way the sample can be studied with the help of microwave spectrometer. Then the radiation are made to conduct along the rectangular tube called the waveguide. That means through the waveguide we conduct the radiations. After this the radiation are received by the quartz crystal detector, which is situated at the far end of the waveguide. That means here our sample is placed, that means here our sample is placed, and after the interaction between the sample and micro radiation, this radiation again goes through this region, that means this phase of the waveguide, and then detected with the help of this crystal detector. And after that the detection, that means the detection of the micro radiation, after receiving the radiation from the waveguide, it vibrates and produces an electric signal which is amplified with the help of amplifier, and then displayed either as a recording on a chart or as a pattern on a oscilloscope screen. That means after receiving the radiation from waveguide, that means after completion of the waveguide part, the radiation vibrates itself, and due to vibration there is a generation of the electrical signal, and this electrical signal is given to the amplifier, and so that the signal gets amplified, and after that amplification process this signal is given to the display device, and we get the spectrum, or we can give this signal to the recorder, and the recorder record that signal, and we get the particular chart. The pattern obtained on the chart or the screen of the oscillography enables one to determine the frequency or the range of frequencies of the detected microwave radiation. So in this way we can study the given sample with the help of microwave radiation or with the help of microwave spectroscopy. That means we get the rotational spectra on the display device, and we can study that rotational spectrum. So in this way our microwave spectrometer work. So here we have covered the microwave spectroscopy, that is the introductory part of the microwave spectroscopy, principle of the microwave spectroscopy, and microwave spectrometer, that means the instrumentation of the microwave spectrometer and how it works. All those things we have covered in this lecture. Now in our upcoming lecture we will continue with the different topic.